A locked door, a narrowing deadline, one wrong assumption, and the entire plan collapses. Yet Michael Scofield rarely seems surprised. While everyone else reacts to the crisis in front of them, he appears to be living several minutes, days, or even months ahead. That is the fantasy, a mind so precise it turns chaos into choreography. Every obstacle has already been considered. Every reaction becomes another step in the design. Watching him, we start wondering whether strategic foresight is a rare gift or a skill ordinary people can learn. But real life has no writers protecting the final reveal. People behave unpredictably, information arrives late, timelines slip, tiny errors multiply. So copying Michael cannot mean predicting everything. It must mean extracting the useful methods hidden beneath the television illusion and discarding the dangerous mythology. His realistic advantage is prepared adaptability, defining what success requires, tracing dependencies backward, recording complexity outside his head, testing crucial uncertainties, anticipating likely responses, and revising quickly when reality refuses to cooperate. Not prophecy, preparation that preserves enough flexibility to survive contact with the unexpected. In this documentary, 3 moves ahead means something specific. Move 1 is your action. Move 2 is the response it will probably trigger. Move 3 is the adjustment you have prepared. The goal is not to control the entire board. It is to avoid being completely surprised. We will examine 5 planning principles behind that advantage, where each principle breaks down and how to use it safely. As the stakes rise, our plans will move from personal goals to human conflict, failed assumptions, and consequences no planner can fully control. First, we must separate character from evidence. Michael Scofield is a fictional construction, not proof that people can calculate social reality like a chessboard. His plans feel extraordinary, partly because writers select the obstacles, arrange the clues, and reveal hidden preparations at exactly the right moment. Prediction is an estimate of what may happen. Preparation is what you arrange before it happens. Adaptation is what you change after new evidence arrives. Luck is an outcome influenced by forces you did not control. Fictional construction can disguise all 4 as one seamless display of genius. Michael also begins with advantages most viewers do not possess: privileged information, engineering expertise, preparation time, and unusually detailed access to the problem. Remove those advantages and many impressive deductions become less mysterious. Better information, gathered earlier, can look remarkably similar to superior intelligence. Television compresses research, discards boring dead ends, and reveals preparation at the most dramatic moment. We see the successful chain, not every rejected version. A brilliant outcome may contain skill, preparation, adaptation, luck, and authorial design, but the finished story encourages us to call everything prediction. Place a simple 3-move card on a table. Now surround it with coded notebooks, tangled strings, locked folders, and 20 branching arrows. The larger display looks more intelligent, but every added part creates another failure point. Complexity can conceal weak assumptions instead of correcting them. Now slide a magnifying lens over 4 cards labeled End State, Memory, Test, and Replan. Treat Michael as that lens, not as a laboratory result. His story exaggerates planning into spectacle, but the magnified questions are real. What must happen first? What deserves testing? When should the route change? Principle 1 is backward planning. Most people begin with their current position and ask, what should I do next? Backward planners begin with a clearly defined end state, then move in reverse, asking what must be true immediately before that outcome becomes possible. Suppose your goal is changing careers. Get a better job is too vague. A useful end state might be, receive an acceptable offer in a target field within 6 months. That definition establishes boundaries for salary, role, timing, location, and the evidence that will count as success. Now step backward. An offer usually requires strong interviews. Strong interviews require credible examples. Credible examples may require a portfolio, training, or relevant experience. Each requirement becomes a dependency, and each dependency points toward actions you can begin, schedule, or investigate today. This is not planning every hour in reverse. It is identifying the chain of conditions connecting effort to outcome. If one necessary condition is missing, activity farther downstream may be wasted. Sending dozens of applications before building credible evidence can create exhausting motion without meaningful progress. Cute poison illustrates this logic symbolically. One memorable cue represents a much larger dependency sequence. The useful lesson is not the fictional mechanism. It is that complicated goals rely on ordered prerequisites. Step 4 may be useless or impossible until steps 1 through 3 are secured. A backward dependency map also exposes bottlenecks. Which requirement has the longest delay? Which one depends on another person? Which failure would invalidate everything after it? As deadlines approach and resources tighten, these questions direct attention toward leverage rather than equally distributing effort across unequal tasks. But backward planning has a weakness. One imagined path can begin to feel inevitable. The farther you work backward, the more assumptions accumulate. If those assumptions remain invisible, confidence rises while reliability falls. A strong map therefore contains multiple acceptable routes, not one perfect chain. Put a destination pin on the right side of a board, connect it to 3 routes made from removable cards, circle the fragile links in red, then physically detach one route. The destination remains. Strategic planning means committing to the outcome while allowing the route to be replaced. Principle 2 is externalizing complexity. Human working memory is limited. When we try to hold goals, deadlines, exceptions, risks, and sequences simultaneously, details compete for attention. The result is not necessarily deeper thinking, it can be confusion wearing the costume of intense mental effort. Michael's elaborate external plan dramatizes cognitive offloading, moving information from memory into the environment. Calendars, checklists, diagrams, notes, and visual cues can reduce the burden of remembering, leaving more attention available for judgment, error detection, and adaptation when conditions begin to shift. The benefit is easy to underestimate. A written dependency map does not merely preserve information, it lets you inspect relationships. You can see duplicated work, missing steps, impossible timing, and assumptions that felt invisible while they were circulating inside your head without stable form. External systems can also protect plans during demanding situations. Under pressure, people can forget details, narrow their attention, or default to familiar behavior, depending on the person and context. A clear checklist or cue can restore the next action when unaided memory becomes less reliable. Yet, external memory creates new risks. A system can become outdated, misunderstood, lost, or discovered. Mahone decoding Michael's external plan represents this discoverability problem. As the information becomes more valuable and the consequences more serious, access, interpretation, and security become part of the strategy. The safe lesson is not to conceal wrongdoing more effectively. It is to design appropriate information boundaries. Sensitive personal, financial, medical, or workplace details should not live in unsecured documents. Externalization helps only when storage, access, consent, and interpretation are handled responsibly. There is another trap. Building the system can replace doing the work. Color-coded dashboards, intricate databases, and endless templates may provide the emotional reward of control without producing progress. When maintaining the map consumes more effort than following it, the planning tool has become a competing project. Audit the system with 3 questions: what must be remembered, what must be decided, what must be noticed when circumstances change. Store reminders externally, keep decisions visible, and schedule review points for assumptions. Everything else may be decorative complexity, and decoration becomes dangerous when time is running out. Principle 3 combines if-then planning with targeted testing. An if-then rule links a recognizable situation to a prepared response. If a specific event occurs, then I perform a specific action. This reduces hesitation when execution begins and the cost of delay starts rising. For example, if I receive no reply within 5 working days, then I send one concise follow-up. If my study session is interrupted, then I restart with a 10-minute block. The trigger should be observable and the response should remain simple enough to execute. Draw an index card with 2 boxes, if and then. Beneath them, add a third box labeled result. After the action, mark whether the rule helped, failed, or caused a new problem. An automatic response improves follow-through, but it cannot transform a bad decision into a good one. Add a stop rule beside it. If costs exceed a fixed limit, evidence contradicts the premise, or safety becomes uncertain, pause and reassess. Stop rules protect judgment when sunk costs make persistence feel heroic. Continuing is not resilience when the original reason for continuing has disappeared. Before creating branches for everything, test the uncertainty that matters most. English, Fitz or Percy offers a fictional example of targeted observation. Several routes appear possible, but one focused test can reveal which deserves attention. Where evidence is obtainable, observation should replace increasingly elaborate speculation. Good tests are small, ethical, and informative. Before launching a business, interview potential customers or run a limited pilot. Before committing to a course, complete a sample module. Before relocating, experience the ordinary routine rather than relying on the excitement of a tourist visit. Do not test what existing evidence can answer cheaply. Check base rates first. How often do comparable projects succeed? How long do they usually take? And where do they commonly fail? Your situation may differ, but declaring yourself exceptional without evidence is not strategic confidence. Draw one action at the bottom of a board, 2 likely responses above it, and 1 adjustment beside each response. Now erase 10 faint branches leading to unlikely disasters. Selective preparation covers plausible consequential events. Planning for everything can leave you ready to execute nothing. Principle 4 is probabilistic response modeling. Until now, the plan has mostly confronted tasks and information. Now it confronts other people, and the stakes rise. People have incentives, habits, constraints, emotions, private knowledge, and the freedom to refuse whatever role your plan assigned them. Start with perspective. What does the other person know? What do they want to protect? What costs are they avoiding? What would success look like from their position? This is not mind reading. It is structured curiosity about pressures that may shape but never determine their behavior. Imagine proposing a new process at work. Your manager may value efficiency but fear disruption. Colleagues may support the outcome but resist extra training. A 3-move plan anticipates those responses and prepares evidence, a small pilot, an easier transition, or a respectful path to refusal. Use probabilities, not certainty language. Replace "they will reject this" with "rejection seems likely because the short-term cost is visible." That wording keeps alternative outcomes alive. More importantly, it exposes the assumption you could investigate, test, or revise before treating your forecast as fact. Fill a jar with 10 counters representing 10 comparable past requests. If 7 were delayed during budget season, place 7 on a calendar square marked delayed. That base rate becomes the starting estimate. Current evidence can move the counters, but personal confidence cannot simply sweep them away. Incentive models remain incomplete because people are not machines. Identity, loyalty, fatigue, misunderstanding, fear, and sudden emotion can outweigh apparent self-interest. A response that looks irrational from your position may make sense inside information, history, or values you do not possess. Hand your dependency map to someone outside the plan, give them a red marker and ask them to cross out unsupported assumptions, draw a missing incentive, and circle the forecast they distrust most. A useful second opinion does not admire your conclusion. It attacks the root before reality does. Ethical boundaries are essential. Modeling incentives should improve cooperation, negotiation, and risk awareness, not manipulation. Respect consent, privacy, dignity, and other people's freedom to choose. A plan that succeeds only by deceiving someone or exploiting vulnerability is not strategic excellence. It is harm with better organization. Principle 5 is active replanning. Return to the board and replace permanent ink with removable cards. Mark 4 triggers: missed milestone, crossed cost limit, changed evidence, unavailable dependency. A robust plan expects pieces to move. Its strength is measured by how quickly it notices and responds. Tonight illustrates schedule revision after a route becomes compromised. The important lesson is not dramatic improvisation. It is recognizing that the original timeline no longer matches reality. Once a key assumption fails, repeating the old sequence more forcefully rarely makes that assumption valid again. Establish review triggers before execution. Reassess when a milestone is missed, a cost threshold is crossed, critical evidence changes, or a dependency becomes unavailable. Without predefined triggers, people may revise too late because hope, pride, and previous investment keep extending the life of a broken plan. Planning fallacy can make this worse. We often underestimate time, cost, and difficulty, by imagining the ideal sequence while excluding ordinary interruptions. A base rate estimate from comparable past tasks is usually less flattering than intuition. As consequences grow, that discomfort becomes increasingly valuable. Stress can further reduce flexibility in high-pressure or unfamiliar contexts. Attention may narrow and familiar responses may become more dominant. This is why simple branches, external reminders, and clear stop rules can outperform elaborate improvisation. The plan should become easier to use as conditions deteriorate. Riots, drills, and the devil symbolizes the climax of planning failure, uncontrolled second-order effects. One action changes the environment. The changed environment alters other people's behavior. Their behavior creates consequences beyond the original calculation. Suddenly, the planner is no longer moving pieces. The pieces are moving one another. A 10-minute pre-mortem can surface some of those possibilities. Imagine the plan has failed, then list plausible reasons and downstream consequences. This is preparation, not prediction. It cannot reveal every surprise, but it can counter overconfidence before commitment makes criticism feel like betrayal. Robust plans preserve reversibility and multiple acceptable outcomes, prefer small pilots before full launches, flexible agreements before irreversible commitments, and staged spending before total investment. When prediction fails and luck turns against you, adaptation depends on preserving enough time, trust, money, and freedom to change direction. Now build your toolkit. Start with a 3-move card. Write your next action, the most likely response, and your prepared adjustment. Add one sentence describing the assumption connecting them. You are not claiming the response will occur. You are preparing for a reasonable possibility. Next, create a backward dependency map. Put the end state at the right side of a page and trace prerequisites toward the present. Circle the bottleneck, mark dependencies controlled by others, and draw at least one alternative route around the link most likely to fail. Then perform a base rate check and a 10-minute pre-mortem. Find what usually happens in comparable situations. Imagine your plan failed. List 5 plausible causes and the consequences they could trigger. Then address the 2 that are both likely and serious. Do not attempt to eliminate every risk. Choose one if-then rule and one stop rule. The first protects execution. If the observable trigger appears, take the prepared action. The second protects judgment. If a defined threshold is crossed, pause. Keeping both simple makes them easier to use when attention is divided. Run a small reversible pilot before making the full commitment. Test the riskiest assumption with limited time, money, and exposure. Decide beforehand what evidence would support expansion, revision, or cancellation. Otherwise, desire and sunk costs may reinterpret every result as permission to continue. Ask for an independent second opinion, then keep a prediction log. Record what you expect, your confidence, and why. Later, compare expectation with reality. Over time, the log can reveal whether you systematically misjudge timelines, incentives, risks, or the reliability of your own certainty. Finally, conduct an external memory audit. Review your calendars, notes, checklists, and dashboards. Remove obsolete information, secure sensitive material, and simplify anything you avoid using. A planning system should reveal the next important decision and the latest changed assumption, not archive every thought you have collected. Michael Scofield seems 3 moves ahead because fictional construction turns preparation into destiny, adaptation into revelation, and luck into design. Real strategy is humbler. Define the end, map dependencies, externalize complexity, test uncertainty, anticipate responses, and replan without ego. You cannot command the future, you can remain ready to meet it.